Let's talk about the rampage, right? Some players still believe that the rampage is a bit too strong in its current state. So I want to ask you, what do you think of the rampage in its current state, and could we potentially be seeing any rampage changes anytime soon?
Sure.
Do you think that Pathfinder needs to get a new passive, or do you think he's good the way he is right now because of his movement and his pick rate? Alright, so I recently had the opportunity to interview a dev at Respawn, and not just any dev. This is the live balance designer for Apex Legends, and his name is John Larson. With Season 12 literally just around the corner, and with 2022 just starting, it's a brand new year, I personally thought it was a perfect time to have this interview. We talked about some interesting stuff from weapon rebalancing, legend rebalancing, and a lot more. So if you guys will enjoy, drop a like, and also, if you could ask a dev at Respawn one question, what question would that be? Leave your comments down below. Alright, so for those who may not know you or know exactly what it is you do at Respawn, could you explain quickly?
Sure, yeah. So I've been working at Respawn for a little over a year now, and my title is Live Balance Designer. So I work in both the live and design teams.
Nice.
My main priorities or main responsibilities is making sure that the live game is in a healthy state, and particularly from a gameplay perspective, from a balancing perspective. So with any major update, I'm always keeping my eyes peeled on if something needs to be disabled or if something needs to be quickly tuned. So I'm not as much focused on future dev work, such as like character reworks or game mode updates, but I'm often a part of those meetings and providing input.
Alright, nice. So it's a pretty like integral role, you know, in the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, both players and coworkers are looking to me to sort of understand what the contentious topics are when it comes to Apex gameplay in arenas and the BR or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm always keeping an eye on it. And like many players, you know, I'm a day one player, and I've been playing pretty much nearly every day since the game came out. So I'm very much into it.
Nice. Let's talk about the rampage, right? It was taken out of the sandbox recently, and it was put back in because of a bug, right? Respawn obviously fixed that bug, it's all good now, but some players still believe that the rampage is a bit too strong in its current state. So I want to ask you, what do you think of the rampage in its current state, and could we potentially be seeing any rampage changes anytime soon?
Sure. You know, I think we got to see. So with any sort of balance pass or any sort of new release, we really got to wait and see how it settles. Like, we have to look at the data. I mean, it'd be irresponsible for us not to.
Yeah.
We like to see how the meta shifts like organically to better help inform like future decisions. So you know, the rampage is strong. I think that was sort of raised by like the exploit that was in the game for a while. Unfortunately, like a lot of us were out of the office. We weren't able to respond to that as quickly as I would have liked, but I think the rampage had always sort of been strong. Like we kind of knew about this on the weapons team, but the exploits sort of raised awareness to the point where now everyone's running it and picking it up and getting more reps in with it, and I think just the popularity of a gun can make people see that power where they otherwise may have not. I mean, even someone like Valk, for her release, I knew that she had potential to shake up like high level play.
Yes.
But it wasn't really until Storm Point came around, which really like suits her kit, that her popularity jumped and it sort of stayed strong. So coming back to the rampage, like exploit aside, the data definitely backed up the decision to bring up the nerf we had planned for season 12 a little early. And it's, you know, I think too early to be awfully confident one way or another on any sort of follow-up pass. Like we're like, I'm looking at it nearly every day when it comes to like revved up state versus normal state, different levels of play, arenas versus the BR, encounter win rate, drop rate, popularity, percent of downs. Like all the data coupled with sort of our experiences playing and community feedback. That's all stuff that helps put it on the radar and guide our decisions. So when it comes to the rampage, I think we're just in a holding pattern for now. Like, we see the concerns. I think, well, that's all.
I mean, I feel what you're saying, because especially with like you gave the example of Valk, right? When Valk dropped, was it season 9? I think I knew from the get-go that Valk was gonna be like one of the best legends in the game, but it took players so long to really, you know, fully recognize how strong her kit is, not just like her ult, but also her movement capabilities. Like, it took Valk a couple of seasons before she really became what she is now. So I kind of could see the exact same trend taking place with the rampage, because I think the rampage, my personal view is that it's really strong, of course, but I wouldn't say it's OP. I would just say it's like a very strong gun if you hit your shots. I feel like a lot of players right now in Apex don't really use the rampage to that level. It's kind of only the really skilled players could pull off what the rampage is capable of. So I see what you're saying, like it just because it's a popular gun, everyone is kind of just gravitating towards it, and it's making it seem a little bit more stronger than it really is, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, and this is why you can't get lost in the numbers too. Like, I know one of the things I thought was entertaining was like, I guess I want to debunk the thinking that the nerf did nothing because it didn't change like cutoffs for bullets, like requiring to knock at any. I would see posts like, this nerf literally does nothing because it still knocks a purple shield in the same amount of hits.
Same amount of, yeah.
And like, yeah, but like we know that. Like we have a big old spreadsheet for tracking this. Like we know every cutoff for different shields and different helmets. So we knew it wouldn't change any cutoffs in that sense, but we also know that Apex isn't just sitting in the firing range and unloading on a dummy. Like there's lots of variables involved in actual combat within Apex. So while it doesn't affect a cutoff point, it's doing less damage. And even on paper, like the DPS is not very good. DPS is also kind of a tricky measurement with lower rate of fire guns that are sort of more bursty. It's not all about numbers, and a 1 damage nerf on something like the Rampage is much different than a 1 damage nerf on something like the R9. And you know, it's all stuff we mull over and talk about in our weapons meetings. So we're aware of it.
So following up from the previous question, right, we've seen a trend over time where LMGs in this game, so the Spitfire, Rampage, Devotion, they always seem to be in a very strong state until they're nerfed or like put in a care package or just made less available. I remember back in season 6, Respawn, they lowered the drop rate of the Devotion like soon after season 6 dropped, and they obviously put the Spitfire in the care package recently as well. I think it was season 9 or 10, I could be wrong though. That was recent. So do you think any overall changes need to be made with the way that LMGs currently work in Apex?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I think a lot of times people say, you know, remove Rampage from the game, remove Spitfire from the game, remove Devo. I think it's more of a frustration stemming from like what LMGs are in Apex, because LMGs have existed in first-person shooters for a long time. And I think Apex doesn't need to be like an exception to that. I think what we could sort of tap into is making them feel more LMG-like. I mean, in a lot of ways, I think people think of them as an AR with a bigger mag. And I mean, in a lot of ways, that's fair. They have a different strafe speed. The reload times are generally a little longer. But in a fast-paced game like Apex, it's a little easier said than done to just make them more LMG-like because, like, let's say, like, I mean, a common tool for balancing LMGs will be like movement speed when you have it equipped, right?
Yeah.
But in Apex, all movement speeds are the same, right? For all weapons. I think that makes sense in the Apex world where movement is such a critical thing. I don't think like having different move speeds is like a sort of justifiable calculation that the player should have to consider when you should really just feel empowered to move. So I don't think the constraint should be there per se, but you know, we have seen Spitfire, Devo, L-Star, Rampage. They've all had their day in the limelight when people have been very frustrated with them. So, like, it's absolutely something we are looking into and considering when you have something like the Spitfire that will be coming out at some point. You know, how we're gonna just reintroduce that in a healthy way, because we don't want it to be R301 and Flatline Legends all the time, you know. Like, you should feel like weapon diversity is a good thing. It gives players options. So there is a healthy way to improve upon that.
So many players, right, especially on PC, they seem to be confused as to why the removal of top strafing was announced, right? Even though you fully explained why you think top strafing needs to be removed, or just, let me say, adjusted. Can I say removed? Or should I say adjusted?
No, like, we're not removing it. There's still, you know, capabilities that you can do. With top strafing. So yeah, tuning it, I guess.
Alright, so even though you fully explained why we tuned, it still hasn't happened. Like Apex, top strafing is still a doable thing. Movement ability, I don't know. trick, however, in Apex. So can you give a rough estimate as to when this change will be made live in game, or if you guys are still even planning on tuning top strafing in Apex?
Yeah, I mean, we're still planning on working on it. Like with something as sensitive as movement, we want to make sure we get it right. So
yeah,
you know, once we get sort of more like pro feedback and movement god feedback through like play tests and stuff, like and we can have more confidence into the fixes we have planned, like then we'll roll it out. And I'm personally not in a rush to roll that out. Like I just really want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, I understand.
And it's as someone who plays on controller, like it's hard for me, and I really rely on input from fellow devs that are into movement and other pro players. Like they're my number one resource for really dialing in this feel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I can't provide a specific date or anything, but it is something we feel comfortable with tuning for the reasons that I've sort of detailed in like the blog posts, which I would just encourage anyone to sort of revisit those.
All right, so Pathfinder seems to have a pretty stable pick rate right now. Despite this, many players have often called for a new passive because his current passive seems to be weak or just lacking, you know, compared to other legend passives in the game who have like dedicated passives. Pathfinder passive seems to be linked to another ability. Do you think that Pathfinder needs to get a new passive, or do you think he's good the way he is right now because of his movement and his pick rate?
Yeah, so at this point it's like a running joke at the end of our balance meeting every week. We're like, so any passive ideas?
Yeah.
And you know, like I've seen a lot. I've sat down and just thought about it a lot. Like it's tricky because he does have a healthy pick rate and win rate, and sort of as everyone's favorite grappling Grim Reaper. Like he's just fun. Like grapple's just one of the most fun abilities in the game. When thinking about, well, he doesn't have a passive, like it's important to evaluate the kit as a whole. Like I don't think there's any world where like every legend, I don't think there should be a world where every legend has like an equally enticing passive, tactical, or an ultimate. Like that just doesn't exist. But you know, if anyone has a compelling idea for an interesting passive that isn't like a straight up buff, like we're all ears. I think a lot of the ideas I've seen would just be buff. Like I was thinking he's sort of the zipline guru, placing zip lines. He's got the grapple. Like, does he have like less of an accuracy penalty on zip lines, or can he heal on zip lines? But it's like that would just be a straight up buff to him.
I mean, that's a buff kind of.
Yeah, I like the fact that enemies can take zip lines. I mean, zip lines are fun, and I think there's interesting gameplay around thinking about where you're placing your zips and understanding if people can like rotate behind you and take those. Yeah. So anything that like adds movement is
always good.
I generally like keeping in the game, like to a degree. You don't want straight movement creep all the way, but
I think the only reason players were like suggesting removing his zipline, only Pathfinder zipline, was because they made the argument that, well, Wraith Portal disappears eventually. They said how Horizon's a queue, but then again, players can't take Wraith Portal, they can also take Horizon's queue, but it just has like a limit to how long it stays up.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the abilities in Apex that are sort of team agnostic, where the person who's deploying the ability has control over the timing of that, like where and when they're actually doing it. But then everyone on the battlefield at that moment can make the decision to use that. And I think those are like the fun abilities in Apex. But yeah, when it comes to path passive, like I don't know, I think the current passive's actually like grown on me a bit as I've played more path, like just getting zip lines more often with the survey beacons. But like I feel you, I hear you. It's just not a number one priority right now because
his pick rate is so solid. Awesome. Yeah, he's still such a fun legend to play. I kind of feel for the players who didn't start playing Apex in the beginning, because back then, before crypto had like all these other legends could scan beacons and stuff, and he was just that like one token recon legend with his abilities. It was insane.
Yeah, he was a total beast. I actually think, kind of on a related note, like I want to bring out Gibby because he's kind of got a different problem from Path, but similar in the sense that like we like to do some rebalancing there to his kit. Like he's like a must pick at high level play.
Yeah, for sure.
But he's just not, like, people pick him out of necessity. They don't have a lot of fun with Gibby's kit. I think a lot of this has to do with he's got a lot of like long cooldowns. His ultimate and his tactical, it's a long cooldown, and generally using abilities is fun when people can press a button and do something. So I guess the reason that I personally haven't like advocated too hard for Gibby changes or haven't prioritized them more is because like his bubble is an awesome ability in Apex, and it's not nearly as contentious as something like Caustic Gas, particularly in like competitive. Like I know when Caustic was 100% pick rate in comp, like it wasn't a lot of fun for both players, and even as a spectator, it's hard to understand what's going on in this gas.
I personally hate Caustics.
Oh yeah, I mean you and like all of Twitter. It's tough when I see ideas of like give bubble health. I don't like how that would affect Gibby. I think I don't think that's it's not the way I would nerf the bubble.
And that's a big nerf too. Like
that would be a big nerf, particularly at high level play. Well, what I don't like about it, what I do like about the bubble is that it's a great tool for resetting from combat, and I feel like that's one of the big reasons he's like the go-to support player, is because there's not many characters. Well, there's nothing in Apex that has 360 degrees protection, and that's like great for resetting, obviously. Yeah, I think taking some power out of the sort of offensive capabilities of it, like in pro play when they'll like bubble forward on a team and sort of initiate a fight with the bubble. I think we could like look to do something there. So all this said, it's a tough sell to straight up nerf a character with like less than 5% pick rate. Like so what we're grappling with is like, how do we transition him from a must pick that no one wants to play to an enticing pick that's not as dominant? And that's sort of the struggle we have. Like if someone has an idea that can nerf Gibby bubble or nerf Gibby's effectiveness, but then also make him like, oh, like Gibby, I can just like boot up a pub and have fun with Gibby with a couple randoms. Like that would be the dream.
I understand that. All right, seems fair. So this question isn't about any legend, it's about you basically being a game dev, right? Because being a game dev, especially in the Apex community, I mean, I just see comments on my videos, so I can imagine like seeing Reddit posts and tweets and stuff DMs being directed to you, because you're obviously kind of like a public figure for Respawn. So how is it working on one of the biggest FPS games in the world, one of the most successful gaming companies in the world, but also having to deal with backlash from angry fans?
I mean, all things considered, like it's amazing. Like I'm pretty lucky that I get to work on my favorite game of all time, and there will always be backlash. There's no such thing as a perfect game. Like, there's always gonna be something to complain about, and especially with a live game. But I think backlash means there's passion, and passion means people care and are invested. And as someone who cares about Apex, probably to a fault, like that's really all I can ask for.
That's a great answer. That deserves a clap. That's a really good answer. So to end up this interview, Apex has been hailed as the best Battle Royale game by critics, by fans, by so many people. Of course, you have like different Battle Royale players who kind of stand their game, but Apex is the best Battle Royale game. Anyway, with so much competition right now in the FPS and Battle Royale genre, right, what do you think makes Apex stand out so much?
Yeah, I think Apex just really excels as a competitive Battle Royale. Like, it rewards people that put in the work to get good at the game. And some people will say competitive Battle Royale is an oxymoron of sorts with the sort of amount of RNG that's involved in the genre, but I think with the movement system coupled with like the high TTK, buttery smooth gunplay, like just all comes together beautifully, and the Legends abilities sort of augment the experience and just add a depth that I don't get out of other games. I just keep finding myself coming back. So I'm stoked for the future. Like, we had a morning meeting today, just sharing some stuff about what's to come, and all I can say is like I don't want to spoil the surprise, but we got just some good stuff coming.
Hey, yeah, that's good enough. That's good enough for me. So I mean, I guess that's it. Thanks so much for doing this again. I appreciate it. If you guys want to find him, you can find him at where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean Twitter, RSPN_JBeeps. I'm always talking about the game on there. So
Yeah, I'll leave the links down below. Go follow him. And yeah, I guess that's it. I appreciate it again, man. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, you have a good one.